Tips and tools for talking with school staff. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to talk first a little bit about PACER and who we are. PACER has been Minnesota's Parent Training and Information Center since 1978. When we were established, we began as just one project called Parents Helping Parents. Then as now, PACER is staffed primarily by parents of children with disabilities dedicated to educating other parents and improving the lives of children with disabilities throughout Minnesota. The original philosophy of Parents Helping Parents remains the foundation. Today, PACER offers more programs besides the Parents Helping Parents, such as the Simon Technology Center, that you can access information on our website about them, and also the Count Me In Puppets. These services are available for parents, students, professionals, and other parent organizations. PACER's board includes parents of children with disabilities, which is a really important part because we do then get input from parents throughout the state of Minnesota. Today, as we're talking about tips and tools, we're going to start out with frequently seen issues that we as advocates here at PACER Center encounter. As parents of students with disabilities ourselves, each one of the advocates has probably encountered situations like this, but we get a lot of calls from parents who talk about frequent issues seen. Many times as parents, we encounter situations that may frustrate us, discourage us, and sometimes just make us angry. Depending upon how we respond to these situations can sometimes only make the matters worse. So we want to offer some ideas, these tips and tools, on how to be more successful with expressing your concerns and addressing issues that do arise with your special education team. Both state and federal laws and rules are in writing. These are the so-called rules of the game, but it's people who use these rules, so we also need to know the people skills. These skills can be learned, and that is what we're going to talk about today, and hopefully I can provide you with some of those tips and tools to help you be able to do that. At PACER, when working with parents in schools, these are problems that we frequently see. Other things that we often see are parents trying to get along until it's just gone too far, and damage has been done. Behaviors frequently go from passive to aggressive, totally skipping assertive behavior. And we want to be able to help you with how to avoid that happening. Many times parents are addressing a problem to the wrong person or the wrong group of people. We want you to stay within that special education process so that if you are having concerns, you want that first person to contact to be your child's IEP case manager. If that doesn't resolve the issue, then you put those concerns in writing to the director of special education, and you can feel free to send a copy to the principal. General education issues are typically dealt with by the principal of the school. So again, if it's a special education issue, bring those concerns to the case manager first. If no resolution, then you want to move on to the director of special education. Quite often, one of the other issues is that the focus on the needs of the child are kind of lost in the shuffle. There may be misunderstandings with an IEP team, personal feelings may come into play, and as the adults, we all need to remember why we're there. It's for the child, and what does the child need? So in addition to these issues, parents may not know or understand the process or the rules of the special education system. Other PACER workshops are about the laws and rules, and we've got them posted on our website. This workshop, though, today is about working with the school personnel. So where do we start? Well, we always have to start with ourselves. So take a look at your skills. How have your school meetings been going for you? Do you think you're being effective? If not, think about what role have you played in that process. There's a lot of information in one of our publications called Working Together, and that publication is free of charge to Minnesota parents. You can access that, order it on our website, or contact Pacer and request a copy be sent to you. So assess your current skills. What does that mean? Again, how have meetings been going for you? If they're not successful, something's not working within the communication process, and you need to think about that and take a look at how you're interacting and reacting to situations. Think about your own attitude towards the school staff and how that can have a big impact on how you interact with them. You know, if you think about yourself when you were in school, did you have a difficult time? If so, that may have an impact on how you're interacting with staff now for your own child. So, you know, think about your verbal interactions and your body language. You know, take a look at yourself first. You are the only person that you can change at a meeting. So, are there areas you feel you maybe need to improve on? Hopefully, we can help with some of that today. So, remember, you know, this is about you and it's not about them. So what do I as a parent need to do in order to be able to communicate with the staff? Or how can I improve my interaction skills? Well, I want you to think about a mobile hanging in the middle of a room. You know, it's just hanging there until one person just does one minor little tap. Think about what happens. Every piece of that mobile is going to make a change. That can happen with your interactions also. You can be the person that makes a change by just changing one little piece of your communication skills. We encourage parents to be intentional with your actions. If you're displeased with how something is going, are you able to express that in a constructive way? If you're able to learn at least 2 new techniques or ways to improve your communication skills through this presentation, I think you will see yourself being more successful at your IEP meetings. As advocates, we can't empower you. You need to claim that power you already have. We, however, can give you some skills to try using to help increase your use of your skills. By knowing your rights and your child's rights in the special education process, you'll have a more solid base of understanding that can help you as a parent. Again, attending some of our other workshops, accessing our resources on our website, which do include a lot of our live presentations, are posted there. This is all going to be able to help you do that. Casey Stengel. Does everybody know who Casey Stengel is? He was this big baseball player, I guess. And back in the days, Casey said, it's easy to get good players. Getting them to play together, that's the hard part. So what we've come up with here is looking at parents and the schools as a partnership. And parents, you are equal partners with the schools. Actually, I say parents typically have the most power because you're the only one that can give written permission for the school to move forward with any proposal or make them stop something if you're in disagreement with it. So often as parents, we know you don't feel as an equal partner. That can change though. And hopefully I'm going to give you some things to help you feel more comfortable in being that equal partner. First of all, you know your child better than anyone else at the table. You're the only one who has an in-depth, long-term daily relationship with your child. Your knowledge and opinions are valuable. You can give others insight into your child and help others to better understand them. You as a parent can learn new skills to communicate clearly and effectively. No, it's not always easy, but it can be done. Remember also that as parents, you're the only one who has the power of giving and withholding consent for any services. I mentioned that earlier. You have the power of the pen. And you're the only continuous person on your child's IEP team. That's why having an equal partnership is so important. As your child moves from grade to grade, teacher to teacher, and school to school, you're the only one who really has that history and can share with the rest of the team things that have worked, things that haven't, and what's happened previously. So when you're working within this partnership with the school, remember again, you know your child better than anyone else. School personnel may have the training and experience of working with children with disabilities. You as the parent know them better than anyone else. And when both of those come together, that's what's needed to help your child be successful in school. Having honorable intentions and being willing to look at others' perspectives is also something else. So we can talk all day about this being a partnership between you and the school, but let's take a look at what that might look like. Think about running a business with someone. You and your partner have to have the same overall purpose of goals, and you need to make an effort to communicate clearly with each other. Business isn't going to succeed if you're not communicating. You need to have respect for what each partner brings to the relationship. You each come with individual roles or jobs within that business and a clear understanding of what that other person's role is. You both have the opportunity to make changes with the permission of the other partner and have the opportunity to give feedback. You bring different skills and information to the endeavor, have a legal contract between partners, both are accountable for the outcomes, and hopefully use problem-solving strategies early. As with most things, you realize that there are limitations of a partnership and you educate yourself about that particular business. So these are the same concepts that can be applied to parent and school partnerships. You know, the business of your partnership is achieving an effective education for your child with a disability. When this is the focus of all adult partners, your child is going to benefit from those services. The IEP is the legal contract that is signed to provide the services for your child. Progress reports are going to tell if the student is achieving the expected outcomes, and if they aren't, there's where the problem-solving strategies come into play. As partners, we need to determine what needs to change within the programming and the strategies being used. Partners want a win-win situation, and parents in school absolutely, I would think you would be supporting that. Now is when you need to figure out how can you reach that mutual goal. Try not to look at who was wrong, but what went wrong and how can we fix it. Together, we can fix it together because that's what it takes. Parents are the experts about their own children. School personnel have the training and experience. As I stated before, both parents and school staff are needed to provide that appropriate programming for your child, and we need to work together to make that happen. At one time or another, even business partners have disagreements and need to resolve them as soon as possible in order for the business to move along. Same thing within the school system. We are a team working together to educate your child. So what can you as a parent do to help this business survive? Having knowledge of the business of educating your child is a good way to start. It can be helpful to know as much about the special education process and the impact that your child's disability has on their performance. So, gathering information might be your first step. So, how do we as parents do that? If you've heard any of Pacer's presentations previously, you know we stress the fact that special education is data-driven. This means that the school records, such as evaluation reports, discipline records, progress reports, are very important because that's the data that's used to make decisions about the education of your child. People's opinions or generalities are not enough. Be sure you have copies of the records and read them. Ask questions if you don't understand the reports. Remember, most of us parents are teachers, so we don't necessarily understand what some of that information in the records is and what the school is sharing with us. One of Pacer's philosophies is if it isn't in writing, it doesn't exist. Anytime someone says they're going to do something or not do something, make sure it's in writing. Any changes to an IEP need to be presented to you in writing, along with a prior written notice explaining the reasons why something is changing. Unless this is for an initial IEP, you'll have 14 calendar days to agree or disagree with any proposal presented to you. Learn all you can about your child's disability and the impact that it may have on their education. There are disability-specific organizations that can help you better understand what might be expected as the diagnosis progresses. Pacer Center has a resource list with state and national disability-specific resources if you need them. Learn all you can about special education. Pacer Center has posted many of our workshops and resources on our website, which are very parent friendly. Again, they're developed by the advocates at Pacer, and again, most of us are parents of kids with disabilities ourselves. So other resources can be found on the Minnesota Department of Education website, as well as other educational resources. Always use caution when relying solely on internet resources. Make sure they're reputable. There's a lot of stuff out there on the web, and we want to make sure that the information you're getting is accurate and is something that you as a parent can use. School records, discipline reports, progress reports are a very important way to gather information on how your child is doing in school. If you haven't, make an appointment to view all of your child's records from all of their files, general education and special education. If you find something in those records that is inaccurate, ask that it be corrected. If you find something that you disagree with, you always can write an addendum and with any sort of a clarification and ask that it be attached to the document so that it becomes part of your child's permanent record. Use a record-keeping system for special education records that works for you. You may want to check out Pacer's special education record-keeping folder that you can order from our publication page, or speak with an advocate and we can certainly mail one out to you. It just helps you as a parent be able to organize that paperwork. You know, there's spots for the evaluation, the IEP, private medical information that you may want to reference, a spot for progress reports, You know, just things, again, to help you keep organized. I remember when my son was young, I kept everything in a shoebox. These record keepers are really great. So I mentioned earlier keeping records, and you know, what are those records that you want to keep? Things like the formal reports such as the IEP, the progress report, evaluation report, notes taken at previous meetings, written follow-up letters from meetings or phone conversations. We're going to talk more about that later on. You know, maybe the school handbook and publications, phone logs, every time you talk to somebody, what the conversation was. And then regular education report cards. So those are all things that will be helpful. Some additional resources through PACER. Again, I mentioned earlier our disability group list, attending our workshops. You can find those listed in the PayCenter that comes out quarterly. They're also listed on our website. The record keeping folder, great resource for parents. Publication called Working Together. Within that, it has tips to help you with those communication skills, but we also have some helpful forms in the back of the book that help you organize yourself for IEP meetings, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later on too. And then also the Minnesota Guide to the IEP. These are all resources that are available to you as parents. So let's talk about some other ways that you as a parent can become a more effective team member. So as with most meetings, the more prepared you are, the better the progress will go. So as a parent, how do we do that? Well, number one, you need to know the purpose of the meeting, who's going to be there, and if you're bringing someone with you. You as a parent have a right to bring anyone with you that may have supporting information to share, or maybe they're just there kind of as moral support for you. That's okay. You can do that. We do encourage that you let the team know ahead of time who's going to be in attendance and expect the same thing from them. You need to know who's going to be there. There should be an agenda for the meeting. So ask the case manager, what is the agenda, and make sure that you have input. It's not the school's agenda, it's the team agenda, and you are an important member on that team. If you have some specific concerns or discussions that you want to have, let them know that ahead of time so that they include that on the agenda. Don't bring surprises to the table, and don't expect any from the school either. If there are some and you're not comfortable talking about them, so they bring up a topic that up to this point no one has mentioned concerns about before, if you're willing, you certainly can discuss it then, but you may also want to ask them for information or data that they have that supports the concern that they're expressing. And maybe you just want to inform them that you want to review that information first, and then you'd be willing to discuss the issues. But for right now, let's stick to the agenda and allow you time to process any new concerns that are being brought up. Make sure you put your concerns in writing. Make a list of what your questions are and bring them with you to the meeting. One of our other tools that we encourage parents to use is our team meeting planner, which you can print a copy off of our website. There's also one in the Working Together publication that helps you list your concerns and questions. It can also help you prioritize those questions and concerns. Sometimes you're only given half hour, 45 minutes for an IEP meeting, but let's say your concerns are going to take longer than that. If you run out of time during the meeting, there's absolutely nothing wrong with saying, hey, let's pull out our calendars right now and let's schedule a follow-up meeting because we've still got some issues that need to be addressed. Make sure that that happens and that you're able to get your concerns addressed. Set priorities. You know, when you're filling out the team meeting planner, it helps you determine what are your priorities. If we run out of time, what is it that I really need to make sure we accomplish at this meeting today? And again, like I said, sometimes a second meeting might be needed. If you have any specific data that you want to share with the team, this would be a good time to do this. It may include information from your child's medical professionals or therapist that might be working with your child. If you feel it's pertinent and want to share it, absolutely do that at your team meetings. Oop, I'm going backwards. Sorry about that. There we go. Solving problems. I solve problems with the computer. So now let's take a look at solving problems at the meeting. When the problem areas are being discussed, make sure that you understand what the problem is and that it's defined clearly. Sometimes what the school is saying may not make sense to you, and that's when you as a parent need to ask. Make sure you understand what they're saying, and encourage input from all the members at the table. You know, one person should not be conducting an IEP meeting and running the show. Everybody needs to have input. You know, if problems do arise, brainstorm, throw out some ideas and take a look at it. Check to see if everyone is seeing the same thing across the board. It's not unusual that what they see at school may not be what you as a parent see at home. Different expectations in each setting. So taking a look at what's happening where, and if you're seeing different things, have a discussion as to why is that, and again, throw out some options to people. And they all options need to be considered. You may find that, one might work better than the other. So with the team choosing a solution, you know, let's try this and develop a plan and see what that might look like. Always make sure that you define who is responsible for doing the steps involved. So pick a solution, set some timelines and criteria for evaluating the solution. Okay, for 4 weeks, we're going to try this new technique within the classroom, allowing Jimmy to be able to move from spot to spot. And let's keep some data as to how often are we seeing it happen? Is it during a specific activity every day that we see it? So gathering that data, make sure, again, that you define who's responsible for what part, and then put the plan in writing. How we're going to gather the data, what the data is going to be, who's going to gather the data, and then when are we going to get together again to review this information and determine, is something working or isn't it working? You know, so as a parent, you may have some ideas as to what a solution may be. Make sure you give input to the meeting because remember, you know the child better than anyone else. But we want you to also be willing to look at other options. They may have the school may have some ideas of things that you hadn't thought about. But anyway, that's the whole concept between the team meeting is we're coming in, let's look at the problems. What are some new ideas? What haven't we tried? What should we try? And what will that look like as we move forward? Other strategies that as a parent we want to be able to use, and I don't like the word strategies, but skills that as a parent we can be using. Ask for what you need. If you need data supporting what the school is saying, ask for it. Ask if opinions are being labeled as such. Special ed is not based on opinions, it's based on data. And so ask for clarification if you don't understand. Phrases that may help you. Things such as, what do you anticipate the outcome of this intervention to be? That term is unfamiliar to me. Would you please describe it, define it? What does that look like in the school setting? How will I as a parent know if this plan is working? I think I heard you say something. Is that correct? This is interesting. Tell me more so I'm sure I understand your view. So asking for clarification. You know, we all know communication is a two-way process that involves listening as well as speaking. Other people may have valuable information and insights that you need to hear. You may never hear that information or those insights if you aren't listening. Listening gives you information on data. Your own thoughts or opinions are just not enough. Listen to see if the speaker is expressing an opinion or if data is being presented. If someone expresses an opinion, it doesn't pay to argue with them, but instead politely ask for the data. Give me the factual information that supports what you're saying. You're not telling them they're wrong. You're just saying, I need some data to support this. Whether you agree or not with what the person is saying, try to understand clearly what they're saying. You may want to repeat what you've heard to make sure you understood it correctly. Always allow the other person talking to finish, and don't assume you know what the speaker will say. And don't argue mentally with them. You may miss some data or the real message while thinking of what you'll say next. I used to do that a lot. It was like, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. And then it was like, oops, sorry, I missed what you said. It's important. Listen, again, you don't have to agree. Restate or summarize what you heard if you need clarification on something. How you state your questions can make a difference in how people respond. For example, here's two ways of saying something. You should never send Tara to the office. Sounds a little harsh to me, but on the other hand, you can rephrase it to, instead of sending Tara to the office, you could call a social worker. So in the first one, it sounds like the person is telling them what they should be doing. In the second statement, it's suggesting a way to do it. Another example is, you should use a different method of teaching reading. Again, that's open for discussion and flexibility. That the second statement that implies that you're ordering someone again to do something. A better way to phrase it is, John's progress in learning to read seems very slow. That's a fact. That's telling you it's slow. So, are there other ways we can be looking at addressing his reading skills? Sometimes just a wording change from using this will instead of I think can make a difference. I think Jimmy needs more time to complete his tests. That's an opinion. If we were to change it to giving Jimmy more time to complete his tests will allow him to show his actual knowledge. That's really concrete and gives a reason to consider changing, or allowing him extra time. You're not helping my daughter versus my daughter is not getting the help she needs. Big difference. You're not helping my daughter says you're not doing your job. The second one, my daughter is not getting the help she needs, is stating a fact that you don't feel she's getting her needs met. Okay, another example is you aren't listening to me versus I don't feel the team has understood my point. So they're both saying the same thing. The first one, you aren't listening to me, is really an accusation. Folks, you're not listening to me, versus I don't think the team understands my point. So as a parent, trying to be a little more clarified in what you say. Also, frequently misunderstandings can be understood when we use correct vocabulary. First of all, as parents, we don't know special education lingo. So using acronyms and that sort of thing isn't going to help us be a more active player in our child's education. So things for parents, though, to remember, summer school is not the same as extended school year. Summer school is available for all students if the district provides it. It's a discretionary service. They don't have to provide it. Extended school year, on the other hand, is specifically for kids in special education who meet the criteria for extended school year. Homebound is not the same as homeschool. Homebound, a student is, due to medical conditions, unable to leave home and requires services provided there. Homeschooling is considered private school in the state of Minnesota. And so they're two completely different entities. So we don't want to confuse our terminology. Again, Pacer Center has resources for parents on our website, including the Working Together publication and a handout on using questions to find answers. Again, you can access all of that information on our website or by speaking with an advocate. There are times when the most effective communication is written form. Clarify and make sure it's clear to everyone how you're going to communicate with your child's teacher. What method works the best for you? What works best for the teacher? Is it a phone call, emails, texts? What time of the day is best? And also determine frequency. Don't be calling the teacher every day unless that's what you as the team have determined. You know, do you need to contact or connect with the teacher on a daily basis, or is it on a weekly basis, or when needed, when you have questions? And then also find out if you do leave a message or send an email or text, how long will it take for the teacher to respond, or how long for you to respond back to the teacher? You know, typically 24 hours, 48 hours, that would seem reasonable. So other ways of written communication that might be helpful. Maybe you have a homeschool notebook that goes back and forth between home, usually daily. Brief comments written in, you know, Joey had a great day, or we really struggled with completing the math test today, you know, those type of comments, or Jimmy's in need of more lunch money. Phone logs, you know, in addition to the date and the name of the person you talked with, just write down a little summary of the conversation. You then have data as to what the conversation was about and how things are going to move forward. Meeting notes and thank you letters. You know, ask at the meeting, is someone going to be taking notes? And if so, inform them you'd like a copy of it. And there's absolutely nothing wrong, and I would think teachers around the world would appreciate any thank you note. just saying thanks for the meeting. This is my understanding of what's going to happen, and look forward to working with the team further on providing an appropriate education for my child. Sometimes a formal letter may be indicated. Make sure you know that you're sending it to the right one and that that person is someone who has the authority to deal with the issue. Be brief, but yet to the point, and be respectful. Focus on the main issues of your concerns that you have, and ask for a deadline for a reply, and of course, keep copies for your own records. Typically, if the issue is a general education concern, that would go to the principal of the school because they oversee general education. If it's a special education issue and you've already had a discussion with the case manager and the issue hasn't been resolved, then it might be time to take those concerns to the director of special education. If you don't know who that person is within your district, Pacer Advocates can connect you with them. Also, the Minnesota Department of Education has a listing of the directors for all the districts in the state of Minnesota. But make sure you discuss with the school how you're going to set up ongoing communication, how often it'll be, when it will be, and by what method. Is it phone, email, written notes, meetings? And you can include that in the IEP. Check your child's backpack daily for notes, newsletters, or other communications from the school. And those things should all help keep the communication going both ways. So now we've talked about ways to improve your communication with the school with some tips and tools that we've heard from others that are helpful. When everyone goes into a meeting with high expectations and honorable intentions, disagreements can still arise. So how can we use these schools that we've just, how can we use these skills that we've just talked about in this presentation to help us resolve those disagreements? You know, disagreements are going to happen. What I want you to think about is, do you want to be right or do you want to be effective? Don't take your eyes off the prize. And what's the prize in this situation? It's an appropriate education for your child so that they're able to make progress, not only in their special education programming, but also in the general education. So if you think about it as, unless you're planning to move, view this relationship, and nothing personal about this, but view this as a forced marriage without the possibility of divorce. How are we going to maintain this relationship? That's what we have to do. It's going to be a relationship until our child graduates from high school. So I think when we realize the different roles of the partners in this process, that being you and the school staff, we're not so likely to assume personal motives or dishonorable intentions. I don't think school teachers went into the field for the money because we know our teachers don't make enough. That's just a personal opinion. So we have to look at it in a way that, you know, partners are sharing the goal of this effective education for your child with a disability. When achieving this goal is in danger due to a disagreement, partners can still disagree without being disagreeable. Express that you don't want this disagreement to interfere with your continued partnership. Again, you've got to be able to continue working together, and disagreement is inevitable. It's going to happen sometime or another. How we react to that and what we do about it, how we move forward, is the important part. So, you know, it's okay to apologize. If you realize, gee, maybe I shouldn't have said that, or the way I reacted to that was wrong, it's okay to say, hey, I'm sorry. We've got to continue working together. What can we do to make that happen? So make a positive move to start a process of restoring that relationship. Again, think about a mobile hanging in the middle of the room. It's just hanging there and nothing's happening until one person makes that first step to just tap one part of that mobile. Everything changes. Each piece of that mobile takes a new stance, and you can look at things differently. The same thing can happen during a conversation. If just one person moves in a different direction, the whole process can change. Realize that neither you nor the professionals have all the answers. If you've seen one kiddo on the autism spectrum, you've seen one kiddo on the autism spectrum. Okay? Nobody has all the answers. What might work for one might not for another. So taking a look at what options do we have? We've tried this. What else can we try? Pick your battles. Not everything is worth the effort of disagreement. Okay, so what are your priorities? Being able to prioritize what you really want to see accomplished and happen. Make that your main concern. Often when we do that, other things kind of take care of themselves. So again, pick your battles. Is it worth the fight? Assume good faith on the part of those that you're in disagreement with. Try and think about where they're coming from or what their perspective is. Again, it doesn't mean you have to agree with it, but you really should try and consider it and see, how is it different from your perception? It may be that really it isn't. It may be terminology. So keep that all in mind. Make sure facts are accurate. Base decisions on facts and data rather than opinions and emotions. Yes, as a parent, sometimes the emotions come into play. If that's the case, you always can say, hey, you know what? I need to take a break. I need a few minutes to regroup, gather my thoughts again, and then come back. We encourage you to separate the problem from the person. Sometimes, yes, that can be difficult, but it's something you need to consider. Make sure all solutions reached are put in writing. Again, I can't stress enough, who's going to do it? When will it be done? And make sure you get a copy. Consider using compromise or trial period as a key to resolution. Again, when we were talking earlier, doing some brainstorming, popcorning ideas, just throw things out there. Hey, let's try this one. Let's try it for 4 weeks, gather some data during, and let's see what happens. Let's get together again. Even after all this work, sometimes teams just aren't able to reach agreements. It happens. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act and the Minnesota Department of Education has given parents some options on how to be able to resolve those disagreements. So, resolution, we know, helps preserve relationships. Unless you plan on moving to a new district, you need to figure out how to work collaboratively with the current staff that you're working with. Many times the school isn't aware of your concerns, and an informal meeting with the IEP case manager can help resolve the issue, but it has to be brought to their attention. So the IEP case manager is your primary contact for issues with your child's special education programming. Again, we encourage that these concerns are put in writing so there's data that the concerns have been brought to that administrative level. If after an attempt at an informal meeting with the case manager appears to be ineffective, we encourage then that you bring the concerns to the director of special education. They may not be aware of the situation and frequently are able to access some additional resources that can help in resolving the disagreements. If you still aren't able to resolve those issues, you have some more formal procedures or options that can be considered. In Minnesota, in fact, we're the only state that offers something called a conciliation conference. So if you've received a prior written notice and you're in disagreement with it, you can request an informal meeting with the case manager, or you can request a conciliation conference. If you request a conciliation conference, the school must participate to try and resolve your concerns. The conference doesn't require a complete IEP team and usually includes a higher level administrative person, such as the special education coordinator or the director of special education. This conference must be held within 10 calendar days of your request, unless it's agreed upon otherwise. And then within 5 business days of the conciliation conference, you will receive a written memo that addresses the issues discussed and hopefully any resolutions that have been reached. Okay. Another option that parents in school have is mediation. If mediation is requested, first of all, both parties have to agree to participate, and these discussions are confidential. The Minnesota Department of Education will then assign an impartial mediator who's going to conduct the meeting. They are not a decision maker, as all decisions are still made between you and the school staff. Common issues addressed include, communication breakdown. You've sat down 3 IEP meetings and nobody's listening to each other anymore, so no agreements are ever reached. There may be different perceptions of the student's needs. You as a parent see specific needs, but the school may see other needs. And you just can't agree on that. As an IEP team, you certainly can't write an IEP when you can't determine or agree upon what the student's needs actually are. And then methodology is another area that creates some problems. In other words, the method that the school is using to teach your child, you may not feel your child is making appropriate progress towards their goals and objectives, but the school makes the determination as to what methodology they use. So those are some common issues discussed at mediation. Any agreements reached are written up by the impartial mediator, and then when signed by both parties, becomes a legal document that is enforceable in any court in the state of Minnesota. The Minnesota Department of Education in 2019, in their fiscal year end, reported that mediation had a 92% agreement rate. So that tells me it's a great process when we can get 92% agreement through the involvement of a third party helping us work through it. That's pretty darn successful and certainly helps kiddos in that process. Another option is something called a facilitated team meeting. Again, either the school district or parents can request this. Once again, the Department of Education is going to assign a facilitator who's going to facilitate the meeting, and both parties need to agree to participate. A complete IEP team is needed for a facilitated meeting. Frequent issues include disagreement on the goals and objectives. Maybe it's you don't feel appropriate service minutes are being provided for your child, and accommodations and modifications needed by that student. Typically, the IEP is written right then and there. Everyone is able to see and give input as to what's being written directly in the document. And the hope is that we'll have a completed IEP that you as a parent feel comfortable signing. But again, you still do have your 14 calendar days to review it if you feel it's needed. Parents also have some additional options that involve others outside of the school that we've just discussed. As a parent, you always have a right to a due process hearing. And what that procedure looks like is prior to going before a hearing officer, there has to be a resolution session offered if parents have requested the hearing. What happens there is the hope is that through a resolution process, a resolution session, something such as mediation might be used, where let's give it one more attempt to try and resolve this without having to take it to that higher level of a hearing officer. If resolution is reached through that process, then a hearing wouldn't happen. Otherwise, if resolution isn't reached or if the school's requested the hearing, then it's going to move to an actual court hearing. In most cases, the school district will have an attorney, and we strongly encourage parents to consult one also, because as PACER advocates, we are not attorneys. And then both parties present their case, and a hearing officer is then going to make a determination as to what's appropriate for your child. Another option that we have is a state complaint. And if you feel the school has violated your child's educational rights, you can file a complaint with the Minnesota Department of Education. You don't need to have specifics as to what law you feel they broke. It may be that my child's IEP says they're going to receive speech 5 times a week for 20 minutes each session, yet your child hasn't had speech for 6 weeks. That would be a fileable complaint because they're not following the IEP. So PACER has a checklist posted on our publication page that walks you through the process to help you be, and we can assist you if necessary in writing that complaint. Once a complaint investigator reviews the complaint and determines if a violation has occurred and if there's been educational harm, the Department of Ed may see that a remedy is provided by the district. If you have questions or concerns about filing a complaint, please call and speak with an advocate at PACER. We're here to help you with that process. Parents, what's important to know here, you can use any of these procedures here, and you don't need to follow them in any specific order. Keep in mind that with conciliation, mediation, and facilitated team meetings, you as the parent retain your decision-making powers. With a due process hearing or a complaint, you're giving someone else that right. That doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just a different process, and sometimes it's necessary. So if you have any questions on any of these, please feel free to give us a call at PACER, and we can assist you with that. So what it really boils down to is partners need to be able to trust one another. Sometimes trust becomes an issue between parents and school staff. First thing that has to happen is we need to acknowledge that the relationship has been broken. It needs to be stated in a factual, non-blaming way. Blaming others doesn't get you anywhere and sometimes just creates some additional problems. So acknowledging the fact and say, okay, now what are we going to do about it? When trust is lost between partners, it can be difficult, but not impossible to restore. So things to consider are a lot of the things that we've talked about today in this presentation. Making sure that people are accountable. Everything is put in writing, even small steps or actions. Again, we want to rebuild trust. So if you are going to tell me as a, say I'm the parent and you're going to tell me, the school staff, that we're going to do this, this, and that. I want to be able to believe you and trust you in that. But yet, because of maybe some history, there's been some issues. Let's put it in writing. Therefore, we've got the accountability component, okay? So if the school refuses to put it in writing, as a parent, you can always put it in writing and send a clarification stating on such and such a date we had a meeting. My understanding was this is what we're going to do. I don't really see that reflected, so I just want to make sure that my understanding of what happened is this. So clarifying what your understanding is, then you've got documentation. If you write something in there that the school disagrees with, I can just about guarantee you they're going to come back and say, oh, no, that wasn't our understanding. Okay, so let's get together again. Let's make sure we're all in agreement as to what's going to happen, and let's put it in writing, okay? Set dates and times for when actions are to be accomplished. I can't stress that one enough. Again, it's all to that accountability piece. If we set dates and times, this is when we're going to meet. As a parent, you're going to see, oh yeah, they've done that, and this. And that really is going to help build that trust between you all. Make sure as a parent you review the paperwork that you receive. If you find something that isn't what your understanding of the issue was, bring it to the case manager's attention. That's what they're there for. And don't sign anything you don't agree with. It's much easier to resolve the issue when you get your prior written notice. If you state, no, I don't agree or I don't give permission, than it is to sign it, because that lets the school put that into effect. Then you have to go back as an afterthought and say, oh, wait a minute, no, I really didn't understand that. If you don't understand it, don't sign it. Get clarification. Take further steps by contacting the correct person to bring the issues to. Talking to the paraprofessional about issues with your child's IEP isn't going to get you anywhere. You want to go to the special ed person or the classroom teacher. These are the concerns. How are we going to address it? And again, I can't stress how important it is to know who's going to be doing the follow through, setting up other meetings if needed. And for you as a parent, build a positive relationship with that person. It's one of the best ways that trust can be rebuilt. And again, it's through that accountability. Hold people accountable. Find out who's going to do it. Put it in writing. And I really think something like that is going to help. So, having said that, I want to thank you all for listening today. I hope it's provided you with at least 2 tips or tools to help you be a better advocate for your child. If you have any questions on any of this information shared today, please feel free to give us a call at Pacer Center, 952-838-9000, or send us an email and speak with an advocate. We want to help you in every way we can so that you're able to be out there advocating for your child. There will be a parent survey link coming out because we'd like you to complete an evaluation at the end of this presentation to make sure we're providing you with information that you need, and also to get some ideas from you for anything else that you may need some help with. So once again, thanks for listening in today, and please contact us if you have any questions or concerns. Thanks.